Hey guys, we are going to be talking about one, how to make bone broth, and secondly, some mistakes, common mistakes that a lot of people make when they are making their own bone broth at home. So bone broth or stock is really healthy for you. And it's also extremely frugal because when you're cooking up an entire thing of meat, when you're going, a whole bird, today we're specifically going to be talking about doing chicken, but also if you're using beef or ham, there's, we need animal with bones, you can make bone broth with it in. So, but today we're going to be doing chicken, and here on our homestead, we raise all of our own meat, including our meat chickens, and we butcher them ourselves. So this is the leftover carcass. I like to cook a big thing of meat, so a whole chicken or ham or roast or something like that on Sundays, so then we can have that Sunday night for dinner, and then I've got that to cook with and use throughout the week to use the rest of our meals. So for those of us who are busy, who's not busy these days, can I get an amen there? But if you're working or you've got small kids at home, you're homeschooling, whatever it is, we're all busy, so we've got that done on Sunday. So during the work week, when it tends to get a little more crazy, which does in our life, then I've already got it to go. So this I cooked on Sunday, and I just put the carcass in this bag and kept it in the fridge, and then that way as we ate off of it, I would put the bones back in here to save them. You can also do the same thing with the freezer. So if you cook a whole bird and you've got the bones and stuff, but you're not really ready to make the broth right then and there, go ahead and just toss it in the freezer until you're ready. So I have just got all of the bones, some of the skin and meat, but it's pretty much the carcass of a whole bird here. So this is going to get dumped into the slow cooker that I've got right here. So I'll show you that. So there we go. Inside the slow cooker, there's the carcass there. So then when we're making it, one of the things, a mistake that people don't know or don't do, is you want to use the addition of vinegar, and it's an acid. So, and this is based off of Nourishing Traditions, which is a really popular, a lot of people use that Weston Price Foundation type thing. So this is homemade apple cider vinegar that we made here on one of the previous episodes of the Pioneering Today show. And so what we're going to do is we are going to add vinegar, and the reason that we're adding this addition of the vinegar is the vinegar helps, we need to break the bones down. So in bone broth, there's all kinds of good minerals, there's the marrow, there's a lot collagen, all gelatin, all kinds of good things for our body live in the bones. And so when we add the addition of the vinegar here, the acid, it actually helps get that out of the bones into the broth, which is what we're going to be consuming when it's all said and done. Now, I will give one caveat. If you're doing bone broth, if at all possible, I would recommend using organic and pasture-raised animals. Like I said, this bird we raised ourselves. I know exactly what it was fed and what went into it, but we're pulling all of the stuff out of its bones. And if it's been fed junk and pesticide weird stuff, we don't want to be pulling that back out. So I do prefer to use organic if I haven't raised it myself, if you're going to be doing this for bone broth. But y'all can do, exactly what you want in your kitchen. I'm just sharing what works best here. So general guidelines, this is a 4.5 quart slow cooker. So usually it's recommended that you do 2 tablespoons of vinegar to a gallon of water. So I'm going to put 1 tablespoon in, and then I've got 2 quarts, which is half gallon here, measured out of cold water, and then we'll kind of just see if I need to add more, because volume wise I'm going to have vegetables and the meat in there. I might not be able to get quite that much. So I'm going to go with 1 tablespoon. Get my measuring spoon out there. And this is apple cider vinegar. I think that this was made back in October. And so we're just going to go ahead and use that there. And I just kind of put it all over there on the bones and let that get a good soak going on. Set that aside. So then one of the next things when you are making, and this is what makes this extremely frugal and so easy to do at home, is we're going to add the addition of vegetables. So save your odds and ends. This is just the ends of some celery, which you could kind of chop this up finely if you were going to be using it. But I always just take the ends of vegetables and I will toss them in a bag in the fridge if I'm going to be making this fairly soon, which is the case with this celery. I used this Sunday night and saved this end. And also put it in the freezer. So whenever you've got peelings and odds and ends and stuff, because we're just going to be cooking out the vegetables, we're not going to be eating this because we're going to be straining it when we're done. So it's a great way for those scraps and odds and ends if you're not putting them in a compost pile or giving them to, if you don't have chickens or other animals. it's a great way to put to use things that you normally would be tossing out. So toss those ends in there, and there's no need to chop it up because it's gonna be cooking for a really long time. So save yourself some time, and I don't bother chopping them up like I would if I was making soup or cooking something else. So got some ends, some of the very insides there of the celery. Just toss it in the pot. And then I actually chopped up a zucchini for breakfast this morning. This is just the end of the zucchini. Go ahead and put that in too. So next up, we're gonna be talking about onions. So the skins, normally none of us wanna eat the skins, right? Skins are a great nutrition source and they can go in your stock. Now, I will say this onion came from a store because I just ran out. I didn't plant enough onions in our own garden to take me through the entire year. I always do have garlic, but I didn't have the onions. So if it's a store-bought onion, you've got the outside paper here that's been on conveyor belts and handled by a whole lot of people and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times I'll just remove the very outer layer of the skin. You can try and scrub it up too, but this onion is actually starting to go bad. So I got to cut this part out and then I will just dump all of that in there. But so save your skins, because a lot of times, especially I've noticed with the onions that we grow at home, I've got quite a few layers of skin. So you just remove that outer layer and then put the rest of the layers in, of the onion and the garlic. Just put that in a bag and save it. Like I said, I usually save mine in the freezer, but I have been making a lot of broth this year and I don't have any backup in the freezer right now like I normally do. So I'm gonna be using this one fresh and just cutting out that bad spot. So, and the other thing is, I mean, I'm gonna cut this up a little bit because I'm not gonna put an entire onion in there, but there's no need to dice. I just remove that outer part. We don't have to dice it up, and hopefully I won't start crying on camera. This onion I don't think is too strong. Okay, so we're just gonna take that off. Like I said, I cut out the bad part. And a lot of times there's a little bit of dirt and stuff left right in here on the root part of the onion. So I'm gonna chop that off and not put it in there because I don't really care for the taste of dirt in my broth. And that one I had already peeled a little bit when I brought it home. So I'm just gonna roughly chop this up. We're gonna just leave it in some pretty big chunks there with the papers on there. And that's just all gonna go in there. And because this onion was starting to go bad, there's actually a little bit of a bad spot right there on the end. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this whole one in there, just like that. So the other thing we were talking about is garlic. So this is garlic. We grow usually about 75 bulbs of garlic. So this was garlic that we grew ourselves and cured and is hanging in my kitchen. So the great thing about when you're using your garlic in your bone broth is we really want to use, I won't put the exact whole stem down there, but I'm just going to chop off, there's all these little cloves in here, and I'm going to chop off the root part because that does have a little bit of dirt down in there. And then you're just going to kind of spread these out a little bit. And I got to put the lid on this, you guys, because the onions, making my eyes water. So there's no need to peel these and dice them all up, but to make sure that we get all of the garlic oils and flavor released, I am just going to take them like you would right before you would chop them up and just take the flat broad end. Make sure you guys can see this. There we go. So here's the clove, and I'm just gonna smash it. So I'm not gonna peel it, but that's gonna let all of the good oils and stuff release out. So just take that, peel your hand, go through, and smash those bad boys up a little bit. That was actually about half a bulb of garlic. I might actually put a little bit more in, but just to show you. And then all of this goes in, right in there. Skins and all goes into our lovely pot that's gonna be broth. So you can add whatever vegetables that you've got in there. Like I said, I like to just keep lots on ends. A lot of times I'll do, carrot peelings, parsnips, whatever vegetables that you want to throw in there. A lot of times we usually think of kind of the ingredients of chicken broth when you think of chicken soup. So carrots, celery, onions, and garlic. But you can put in whatever you want. Another thing that I like to do is fresh herbs. Fresh herbs, I have an herb garden, and I'm lucky enough that my rosemary is still going right now, even though we were down into the single digits a couple weeks ago. My rosemary is being quite hardy, which I'm super excited about. So I just went out and I just cut the sprigs whole like this, and then I just dump those in as well. So you can add fresh herbs, you can do whatever flavor combination you want. Some people like to kind of spice it up, and you can put some, peppers in there. You could add ginger, whatever it is go for it. But the great thing is this is a really good way to use those scraps up that we normally wouldn't be using in our cooking. Like I said, the skins and that kind of a thing. So the next thing that we want to do is we're going to be adding our water here, and we're going to be topping it off. So we were talking about common mistakes that people make with bone broth, and one of those was not adding the addition of vinegar. So we're adding our acid in. The other one was not using all the different parts of vegetables that you would normally throw out. So using scraps and saving them to make it extra super frugal. Using chicken feet is another great thing because the chicken feet will give it a lot of gel. So in the world of bone broth, if you ever hear people, they talk about getting their gel on, well, that means when your bone broth is really gelatinous and it almost looks like jelly. So it's really thick. That's like the holy grail that we're all after. So we really get excited when that happens. So adding the addition of the chicken feet in can really help with the gelling factor. So we're going to put this in, and then the other mistake that people make is not cooking it long enough. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more water to this because it needs to be topped off. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about too is letting it cook for a long period of time. So typically when you're doing things like beef broth or you've got those bigger pieces of bone, it's easier to get reach the gelling point and to draw it out because you've got a larger bone. So therefore, you know, the bigger something is, the easier it is to get something out of it. So typically with my beef broth, I'll get gel every single time, no problem. But a lot of times with chicken, it's a little bit harder to get that gel. I have noticed though, since we started raising our own chickens and butchering them, that I get gel pretty much every time. So I'm assuming that it's just because they're fed and they're really happy and I know exactly what they're getting. So using more than one carcass can help so that you've got more bones going in. So you can save up a couple different carcasses of chicken bones and then you can do that together in one pot, and that will help too. But the second thing is making sure that it's actually cooking long enough. So really, 24 to 48 hours is great. And a lot of us just don't let it go that long. You know, we'll let it simmer on the pot for an afternoon or maybe a day. So cooking it for a longer period of time is going to get everything out of there and give those bones time to really break down so that everything gets into our broth. So that's another mistake, is not cooking it long enough. So that's why I do mine in the slow cooker, because I can leave it on low and I can let it go for, you know, up to 2 days and I don't have to worry about it. If I'm doing it on my wood stove, which sometimes I'll do broth on the wood stove, or my regular electric stove, I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving that overnight. Well, one, if it's on the wood stove, I would need to make sure that it was at a high enough temperature the whole time. So I'd have to be getting up and putting the wood in the stove to keep it up there. But two, on my electric stove, not really so hot leaving that running while we're in bed and sleeping or not at home. But I have no problem using the slow cooker. So that's why I always do mine in the slow cooker. So this is just going to go on low. I'll add a little bit more water to that in a minute. But actually, if you can let it sit in the water with the vinegar for a little bit before you add the heat, it'll help to break those bones down a little bit faster. So I'm going to leave this off and then I'll turn it on right before actually I leave for work. So I did some chicken broth. I was going to show you guys. Did this Sunday when I cooked the whole chicken. I needed broth for some of the stuff I was making with the whole chicken, but I had extra. So I went ahead and just put it in the mason jar and put this in the fridge. But what I wanted to show you is I've got that nice fat layer on top. So you can see that there's that layer of fat all the way over the top. If you want to can broth, I can broth a lot because I like having it shelf stable. You can freeze broth. And if you've got this fat layer on here that's sealing it off from the air, then that will help it keep in the fridge for a little bit longer. And then you can put it in the freezer, but I gotta tell you, if you're putting it in the freezer, especially if you're using mason jars, it is liquid. We know when something freezes, it expands. You don't wanna crack your jars, so don't fill it all the way up to the top. Go a little bit less so you've got some headroom there. But I have frozen broth and I haven't had any harm to my jars, but I do always let it thaw in the fridge so it's not going from extreme temperatures to just try and help with that. But if you're gonna be canning it, here's the caveat. Once it's gone and then you're going to strain it out, you have to let it cool because you need to remove this layer of fat if you're going to can it. So I would just scoop that layer off. I leave mine, I strain it out. Actually, I usually will strain it out into a couple of my Pyrex bowls so that I know exactly how many cups I've got, how much liquid of the finished product I've got to plan out for my canning. But you're going to let it sit in the fridge until it's completely cooled and the fat will come and congeal on the surface of it. And then you have to skim that off before you can safely can it, because with the fat layer, one, it can really inhibit with the seal, and we don't want to lose any of our broth to faulty seals. Not only that, but it's dangerous. And broth, even though it's liquid, it's non-acidic, and it must be pressure canned. You cannot water bath ever any kind of broth. Has to be done in a pressure canner. And we also want to remove the fat. With chicken, you don't have as much fat, but especially if you're doing beef or some of those other cuts, you're going to have a lot of fat, and a lot of fat is a bad thing when it comes to canning, because even in a pressure canner, the heat can't evenly get through that layer of fat, and botulism spores can live in the fat. So a couple different reasons that we remove the fat when we're canning it to be on the safe side. So I hope that you guys are going to be getting some of your broth making on. And you can also reuse the carcasses up to 2 times. Now, the second time that you use them, you're not going to get as much out of it because you've already used a lot. I would put new vegetables in, but I'm talking about the bones specifically. And you'll still get something out of it. So you can use it up to 2 times if you want to. If you didn't get a really good gel going on the first time, then there might not be a whole lot left in there, because if it didn't gel on the first time to go a second time, there might not be. But like I said, I did up I cooked this whole chicken on Sunday, got awesome gel going. I don't know if you can tell, but this is totally, it's thick and gelatinous. It's not really in its liquid form. It's not in liquid form right now. Actually, I can show you. Let me get my spoon. Whoops, I forgot I was tethered there. Hold on a sec. About took my whole camera with me. Okay. So I want you to see, so this isn't the fat. I scooped beneath the fat. See how it's like Jell-O. It's wiggling. That's what we want. That's like thebomb.com. Awesome stuff right there. So because this gelled so awesomely for me on the first cook round, I'm totally using it again. But if you didn't get that gel, then I probably wouldn't use it a second time. Just kind of giving you a little bit of how I do things and measure there for you. After the bones are spent, then I typically, because they're chicken bones and we do have our dog is outside, and there's neighbor dogs, and chicken bones and dogs, as we all know, not such a good thing to go together. So I will put my bones actually in the sealed garbage can outside, and I don't leave those out just because I don't want any of the neighborhood dogs or my own dog to get into them and have an issue. But with the spent beef bones, I give them to my dog because he loves them, right? And they're great for him to mow on and chew on and that kind of a thing. So I will feed them to the dog with the beef bones, just not with the chicken bones. Is kind of what I do with those now. I don't typically put those that kind of animal product in a compost pile, just because we have mice here and I don't want to attract any more mice to the area, and they will smell out the meat usually more so than vegetables. So that's just kind of my rule of thumb. That is all I got for you today on making your bone broth, and I can't wait for you guys. But I did want to mention that, one, if you are interested, the bone broth and making apple cider vinegar is all from the book, The Made From Scratch Life, which you can grab on Amazon or go to madefromscratchlife.com. And secondly, you hear me say this is a Pioneering Today show and all of that. Well, I have a Pioneering Today Academy. So what it is it's an online membership, and it started last year. So all throughout the entire year, I walked through how we grow all of our own food, raising our chickens, butchering our chickens, seed saving, cross-pollinating, and canning. So complete canning course, including pressure canning, how to can your own broth, how to can soups, how to can meat, how to do your own jams and jellies and syrups and pie fillings, like everything. Walk you through that. There's over 71 videos in the video library that walk you through it. So right now we are gearing up and we're starting the homesteading skills e-course in there. So how to render your own lard. We're going to be going into soap making, and then how to grind your own grains and bake with fresh ground flour and the different types of grains. So if learning all of those skills is something that is up your alley, you totally want to check it out, because we're just gearing up into getting into the season where we go through and we start planting and putting everything in the ground, adding new fruit trees, orchards. We've got pruning videos, blueberries, all of that stuff. So if you want to check that out, I highly recommend it. Now is a great time to get started and walk through the year with us on how to do that. And it's at melissaknorris.com/P for pioneering, T today, A Academy. So melissaknorris.com PTA. So you can go in and look and see what that is. It's a monthly membership, and you get, like I said, right now there's 71 videos, and then we're adding videos as we go into the next part of the courses and everything every month. So really fun. And two, I just wanted to let everybody know, I know it can sometimes seem overwhelming, like doing all of this stuff, making it home, growing all of your own livestock and everything, but the videos and everything that I do with you, my husband and I both, I've got 2 kids, and we both work away from home. So it's completely doable, and that's kind of how I share it, how we do things, that you can do it when you still have a day job and life is crazy and busy, because that's how it is for all of us, but you can still get it done. I encourage you to go and check that out and see if it's for you, all the different courses that are in there, and we're just starting the Homesteading Skills e-course, so that is a perfect time for you to join so that you can get in on all of that fun stuff. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed that, and I want to extend a special invitation to invite you to grab your free copy of my Ultimate Home Food Preservation Guide. You can go to melissaknorris.com/preservation guide, and I got the link for you. And it shows you 6 different ways to preserve food at home, over 135 resources. It'll help you pick the right equipment, which is best for you and where you're at right now. Root cellaring techniques, how to use oil and alcohol to preserve food at home. And of course, one of my favorites involves canning. We'll be talking about water bath and pressure canning, how to stay safe with both of those, recipes, tutorials, and it's all waiting for you to begin preserving your food at home to build your self-sufficiency, save a ton of money, and be healthy by knowing exactly what is in your food. So what are you waiting for? Go grab your free copy right now.